o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning, James Mason, candidate for Magistrate Judge. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. How about yourself? How's life treating you today?
It's going good. It's going good.
Good weekend.
Yes.
Probably a lot of campaigning right now, a lot of hitting the streets and meeting and greeting a lot of people, I'm guessing.
It has been absolutely that. It is. People are amazed. It's 106 and you're out walking with a long sleeve shirt. So.
Well, as a law enforcement officer, you're used to being in extreme weather conditions one way or another. So not that you like it, but I imagine you're probably you're used to being outside walking around when it's 100 out.
Well, actually, yeah, it's no big deal because at that point I don't have a vest on, and
this is true. You're probably much more comfortable. You can wear just a button-up shirt as opposed to 50 pounds of gear. So.
Yes, and once that vest gets hot, there's no cooling down. So.
Yeah, I would imagine too, and probably gets a little funky after a while. And
it does. It's you carry Febreze with you, and
you're like, I'm sorry, it's the vest. It's not me. I apologize.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess first question is, what made you decide to say, you know what, I want to throw my hat in the ring for Magistrate Judge?
It wasn't a planned thing.
Okay.
Through my career, I've been asked several times, hey, you should run for sheriff. You should run for magistrate. Never entertained the idea.
Okay.
Just recently, it's time to retire and
Gotcha.
get in there. And I was approached by Juliana Halverson.
Okay.
She let me know that EJ was retiring and,
So the plans are lined up and you're saying maybe, and let's face it, how many years have you been in law enforcement?
Over 20 years.
And so, I get it. Law enforcement, yeah, you need leadership, but at the end of the day, it is a young man's game.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not. And so, and I'm sure your family's kind of probably been bending your ear for years saying, maybe you should get off the streets and go get an office job or get something, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I get there's probably a part of you saying, I think I want to get a little safer job right now.
Well, and when she approached me with it, I mean, I've known EJ for years and it wasn't, he's a good guy and I hate to see him leave, but I didn't really get what she was coming at me with when she was telling me and she's like, hey, we need you to run. And I was like, okay, well, I entertained it for a couple weeks. It wasn't
just I got it.
Yeah. So, and made the decision to go ahead and put in.
Sure.
It's all over my career. This is in our wheelhouse.
And that's where I want to go next because we talk about the role of the magistrate judge, and it's one of the more unique positions of a judge. It's whereas we think of judges and we probably all think of the big robes and they sit on the big court and that's a part of the job. But at the end of the day, a magistrate court judge is kind of a jack of all trades. And what I mean by that is, when you look at like your district or circuit court or any of these, and if I'm off on this, please step in. But, they kind of have the judge, and the judge sits on the bench, makes the cases, and follows through on what's supposed to happen with the cases and things like that. But a magistrate judge has to do all of that. And, oh, by the way, organize the office and making sure, you know what I mean? So it really is not only a job of making decisions, but it's also a job of literally being an office manager too. Am I all spot on all that?
A little bit off on that. So there is. I wouldn't be the office manager.
Gotcha.
They've got the clerks and they do have a manager there that takes care of that, and they're very good at it. Mm-hmm. They're very efficient. They keep everybody on track. As far as
so you're not by yourself on that.
Right. And
good.
And as far as what you were saying with the magistrate and the district, it is interesting. Mm-hmm. It is interesting. And law enforcement, we always used to not like doing it, but we had to prosecute our own cases at times, certain minor cases. Mm-hmm. And it's really a good learning experience. You learn how to establish your venue and everything that you need to know to make that case go forward.
Sure.
Because if you don't, it's over.
Sure.
And
So let me ask you, how does the job translate? It's like from your skill set as a law enforcement officer, how does that translate to a judge? Like what works well? What's areas you think you're going to have to kind of beef up on?
Well, as far as the law, when we first start the academy, my academy was 22 weeks.
Well, and that's probably one of the more, a lot of people think it's the physical side of law enforcement, what people have trouble, but I'm guessing it's the vast amounts of information you have to learn and stuff. That's where people have. It's not can you run 2 miles in 10 minutes or whatever it is. It's can you learn all the laws and how to apply them.
Right, and I was fortunate. I got to go to the Hobbs Academy, and they really, really work on the academic part of it. You've got law block, you've got domestic, DTs. You have just a little bit of everything. They teach you report writing. They teach you how to prosecute your cases. And the law block was huge.
Gotcha.
They teach you the elements of the crime, how to be able to pick out the elements and make those decisions. So as you're going as an officer, that's where you really use it over the years. You use it making those cases, whether it be DWI, drugs, or whatever. You have to have those elements of the crime to be able to go on with it.
Sure.
So, and you have to be able to make those. You have to determine those rather quickly on the scene.
Absolutely. How does I would imagine your relationships you've established over your time in law enforcement. Let's face it. We all know we live in the biggest small town there is.
Exactly.
Everybody knows everybody. I know as a law enforcement officer, that's a good asset for you to have. Does that translate as a judge? I imagine it would in some cases because I'm guessing it lets you hand down sentences based. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you know the people,
right?
You know the backstory. You kind of know what's going on. You have more information. Does that give you a more educated chance to maybe give sentences that would be more beneficial or more, you know what I mean?
Right. I see what,
because a magistrate judge has got to know when to throw the book at someone, know when to say that we need to make this a teaching moment. No, and I mean, does that give you the tools to be able to do that better? I guess is what I'm asking.
I believe it does. I mean, over the years, you do. I mean, it is amazing. You don't realize the people you get to know.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always taken that pride. I enjoy getting out with the community, stopping with the community, and visiting with them and learning. And on the criminal side, yes, we deal with a lot of repeat offenders. Mm-hmm. We deal with some of the same people, and we know. I mean, it's something that you pick up over your career, being able to discern what's going on. I mean, you're constantly learning people. You're constantly reading people. They send you to training, interview, and interrogation. They send you to dealing with people with mental issues mm-hmm. and things like that. So you do get a good spectrum of who's who.
Gotcha.
And you learn how to read them. And it's more than sometimes there's something else going on that mm-hmm. you don't see that you really learn. Let's figure out what else is going on.
Gotcha. I'm curious to kind of, because obviously there's a job and there's a job description and say this is the duties of the magistrate judge. But I'm curious for you though, like once, assuming, get elected here and want to be judge, when you go in there, is there things you want to, because I mean, obviously certain ways it's the law. You have to do these things certain ways, but I imagine there's other aspects of the job that you're like, no, I can streamline here. I can make it more. Is there any aspects or is a lot of that once you dive in, you learn? Or, is there ideas like, have you been percolating like, they do it this way. I bet I can streamline that a little bit.
You know, and that's one thing. There's certain things you can promise, be there on time, get things rolling on time. I mean, dispose of the cases as you are, but mm-hmm. I mean, as far as the cases itself go, it's the facts,
gotcha,
the evidence, and the law,
gotcha.
I mean, you have to take everything else out of that equation. You can't put your own mm-hmm. biases, opinions, or anything like that.
Sure.
So it's going to be a challenge.
How much latitude does a magistrate judge have when opposing to sentencing? Is it pretty broad, or is it pretty narrow on what a judge, what can and cannot do as far as imposing sentence?
There is some, and that's the great thing. I mean, discretion is something that I've had my entire career.
Sure. You do it on a day in, day out basis as a law enforcement official.
And I mean, just the simplest, on a speeding citation, I don't have to write that ticket. I mean, there's one citation that you are required to write. It says you shall, and that's suspended license. The rest of them, you have the discretion, and that's something that I've had my entire career, and
Gotcha.
it's been a blessing.
Well, and that's probably the best tool that serves you as a law enforcement officer because, sometimes, like you said, you got your frequent flyers and like, they're not learning a lesson here. We need to be more harsh with them versus someone who just made a dumb mistake or a kid that kids being kids and they do kid things and you don't want to ruin their life because of it. But at the same time, you want them to understand the severity of what they did.
And, over the years I have seen, I've seen some of the judges spent lots of time in court. I was actually the supervisor when I was a sergeant over the courts, so I got a lot of experience from that. But yes, you do see when a young man comes in and he messed up. And I've seen the judges before, what are your plans? Talk to them, visit with them. And the kid's like, hey, I'm supposed to go to basic training in 2 weeks. So I've seen stuff like that over the career.
And here's the part where we all, and I think maybe we should look at it just for a minute the other way, because we all think of a judge as a person that imposes sentences and keeping law and order and peace. But at the same time, it's probably no different than your role as a law enforcement officer, because instead of being the officer that's on the scene to arrest or do whatever, now as a judge, sometimes you got to know when to lay the hand down and say, all right, we're punishing here, versus, you know what, this is a kid that I bet I can mentor and talk to a little bit here, and maybe we can nip this in the bud today. And so there's a lot of positive sides of being a magistrate judge too, where in essence you get to impact these folks positively. And I know that's something, we all look at, well, let's making sure people pay for the punishments they commit and things, but we all know people make mistakes and things. And I imagine one of the cool parts of being that judge is having those moments where somebody comes before your court, you maybe saw them a year ago and they were a hot mess. And you see them a year later and you're like, all right, look, you're doing, you don't want to see them again, but sometimes, parole things happen. You're like, look, you can see this person's trying to do better. It's not time. You know what I mean? You get that kind of attitude. And I think that's the beauty of being a magistrate judge is people that really are trying to do better. You have enough latitude to kind of help them along, and versus the ones that aren't, you can buckle them down.
Well, and that's always the hope. I mean, that is the ultimate hope in law enforcement. Anything is you do want to make a difference. You want people to get better. It's not all about punishment. It's to keep them from doing it again. Yeah. And that's very important. Sure. Since I've started this, the people that have come out and that you never had a clue, actually that said, hey, this is what you did for me. This is what you did for my family. Sure. And it's having that in you to actually take the little time and to stay and go further than what you plan on doing. Sure. Than what you're required to do.
I also want to talk a couple about some other transferable skills here, because one other role of being a judge is not letting people pull the wool over your eyes. Right. I mean, that's also part of it. Someone's trying to get off, they're going to give you a story. I would imagine your job as a law enforcement officer probably that's 101 training, because in essence, you're doing the exact same thing, whether it's sitting on the side of the road or sitting in a courtroom. Someone's giving you a story, and you have to discern whether there's some credence to this story or this guy's full of it.
Yes, yes, and you do. I mean, and that's one thing. Like I said, you really learn how to read that book. You learn how to what they're saying, what movements they're making, what their eyes are saying. You listen to everything, and you confirm.
And that translates in the courtroom, I'm guessing, too, the way people's shifting or talking to you. Yeah.
But then like in court, you confirm with the evidence, you confirm with everything. It's going to be a balance.
So let me ask you, what's I imagine there's parts of the job you're thinking, all right, I need to, where's like your skill sets? Where do you think you need to work more on? Where do you think are going to be the parts of this job that you say, I'm going to have to invest more time to be better at? Because I imagine you're not going to roll and be perfect. You know what I mean? Right. You got to. So where's the areas you anticipate you're going to have to kind of brush up or get better at?
The part that I've told myself that I really am going to have to just is landlord tenant. That's one of the toughest issues.
Because there's certain rules as a police officer you can and can do versus
Right.
what's going on in the courtroom.
Well, as a police officer, we're just following the judge's orders
Sure.
at that time. We're not making those decisions.
You're
We're
not establishing whether someone can be there or
exactly. So that's going to be I think the toughest part of it is just getting that down to a T, because you want to do right for all these people, all the
Sure.
people in the community. You want to do right for the landlords and you want to do right for the tenants. And so that's going to be the issue. I think the rest of them, you know, we use them a lot. So we use them a lot.
What you know, I would imagine too, just we talk about the rigors of the job and things like that. This is actually probably going to be, as far as office hours go, probably less for you. I imagine you're probably putting a lot more in officers or more hours in at the office as a law enforcement officer than you would be as a magistrate.
Well, and since I started out as the patrol sergeant, or I started as a patrol sergeant, moved up to the court sergeant, or I worked over to the civil sergeant. And then once I promoted, kind of did the same thing. I was on patrol forever, and now they've put me over administration and the court. So I'm like, but so there's some hours, but I think it's going to be good.
Sure.
I think it's going to be, the hardest part is going to be being in a building.
That's true.
And not,
your office isn't a squad car anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's going to be a big change. It's going to be a big change.
But it's got to be exciting for you at the same time too, I would think. If because at the end of the day, it's a promotion. You and your personal life and your family. This is, it's progressing, and this is, a goal that I'm sure you and your family want to have is we all grow and get better.
Right. It's going to be a change. It's going to be a change. It's going to be hard to walk away from law enforcement.
I'm curious. Are you an adrenaline junkie? Do you kind of live for a little bit of that?
I am very much so.
How are you going to fill that void? Because I'm pretty sure, unless there's some craziness going on in the courthouse, you're going to miss some of that. I mean, is it just go hunting, fishing? I mean, what's going to be your to meet that need for you?
Well, I am a very big hunter.
Gotcha.
Raised both my daughters hunting, so that's one thing. Maybe some more traveling and hunting, as opposed to, I've never done that before. Just bought a new Harley, so
nice.
So think like that. I mean, not a new one, but we got one.
New to you.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I am gonna miss that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. You're going to see those lights. And
and I know this too. And this, I imagine, just if I'm off base, let me know. But I'm guessing law enforcement is a band of brothers type mentality.
It is.
It's very much. And what I mean by that, being in the military, it's the only other place that you can experience something like that.
Right.
And what I mean by that is it's an all for one for all mentality. And I imagine when, assuming you get elected and then you start serving on the bench, there's going to be that moment where you're going to be like, I feel like I'm letting my brothers, and you know what I mean? It's because you get so ingrained with that.
Right.
Am I close?
You are. It's going to be a change. It's going to be a change, because when I walk away, I walk away. I mean, it's going to be a different ball game.
Sure.
I've heard people say, well, you're gonna favor them. Well, no, and there's a period of time, I believe it's like 6 months, I won't hear any of the cases with the sheriff's department, because I could be involved with them.
Gotcha. So those will be handled by the other magistrate judge.
Right. But I mean, it's going to be different, because you can't tell them, hey, you need this stuff. You don't have the foundation laid for your case. You can't tell them that.
Gotcha.
So they're going to have to rely on their training and what their sergeants review on their paperwork to make sure everything's what's needed.
I'm guessing, especially while you get your feet settled in, like we were talking earlier, as a magistrate judge, you do get a lot of latitude when it comes to sentencing and things.
Right.
But I'm thinking, till you get your feet wet and feel, you're probably going to be, I'm going to do everything by the letter of the law here, and be, not that you always do things by the letter of law, but areas where you're authorized more latitude, you probably reserve some of that till you feel more comfortable with how all that go. Does that make sense?
Well, and just like anything, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a period of time where you're really comfortable with your job.
Sure.
You don't just walk into it and say, here I am. Let's conquer
'Cause
everything.
Chances are you're going to do it wrong if you go with that mindset.
And you have people that you can talk to, mentor with. That's one of the good things about it. I mean, I've been in contact with several judges over the years. Sure. I mean, I've always had their ability to say, "Hey, bounce it off them," and it's been good. It's been a good opportunity to learn.
Do you deal with a lot of attorneys as a magistrate judge, or is it mostly
yes.
I don't hang out very often in there, but
right. Yes.
I didn't know if a lot of people defend themselves, or is there quite a few attorney?
There is a lot of attorneys, and there's a majority of the time, it seems like most of the people that get speeding tickets and things like that, they do that. But times, especially with CMV or commercial motor vehicles, those. And
I'm guessing just because you're a career in law enforcement, you probably already have at least an understanding a lot of attorneys and things in town, because
yes, sir.
It really is about relationships in this world, and not so much for the case,
mm-hmm.
but the other stuff, making sure prerequisites, things get done. Sometimes having those relationships make it a whole lot easier to make sure you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I know someone at that office, I can call them and say, "Hey, where's this at?" And someone will jump on it.
I don't know that happens as much.
Okay.
I don't know that is so much, but yeah, you do, you treat everybody the same,
Sure.
That's one thing you've really got to do.
But it's got to be helpful to, just even knowing, like, I know their tendencies. I know what they're going to do. I can probably predict what they're going to tell me before they tell me,
And you do. I mean, like I said, over the years, I've seen how certain attorneys, I just pick it out, and,
sure.
and what they do, what their usual the way they work.
Sure.
So.
And just to be curious, just to let people know, as a law enforcement officer, you've spent many hours in a courtroom. This isn't, I would guess you probably have as many hours in the seat of your patrol car as you do in a courtroom, or pretty darn close to it.
I have spent a lot of time in the courts, and not so much. I mean, a lot of my cases just went through. I mean, I didn't have to go to a lot of court because,
nothing to contest. Everyone was like, "Yeah, let's do what we got to do."
And especially once the cameras started to come out, man, it just made things. I mean, you're right there. You see what we see.
Sure.
And so, but as when I was the supervisor over the courts, as a sergeant, oh yes, I spent tons of time. I mean, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sitting there listening and hearing the cases, and it kind of did inspire me, for a brief period of time. Hey, maybe I should do law school, but raising a family and being in law enforcement, that's not an option.
Sure.
So this is something that is in my passion. I had my stepdad was actually, when I was a kid and you messed up, he would actually present a case to you. So it was interesting. Yeah, it was good stuff. So
I know never say never and stuff, but assuming you get elected here, is this, this is what you want to do? Or, do you ever want to go back to being a sheriff's deputy or in law enforcement?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think I've done my time. And then once I promoted, it changed a lot.
Gotcha.
All that interaction you had with the community,
you lose some of that as an officer,
absolutely,
supervisor role.
And during this campaign, that's been the best thing, is I'm back to talking to people, and that's what I really I enjoy.
And I imagine because of that job, you get to deal with people on a day-to-day basis. And like we said earlier, it's about peace and promoting peace and justice and everything else. But the magistrate judge is really a mentor as much as that person is a person that's supposed to interpret the law and make sure that people are sentenced accordingly.
Well, and that's what you hope.
Yeah.
That's what you hope, because ultimately that's what we want, is we want them to do better.
Absolutely. So let me ask, I know we got, of course, early voting's underway now here, and I do want to remind folks, the magistrate judge race is going to be decided in the primary. Yes. So if you're a registered Republican, you get to decide this race here. There will not be there will be a general election, but you don't get a choice. It'll be one of the two candidates that come out of this, and that's who it's going to be. So do your homework. Go.
Absolutely.
Like I said, you can early vote right now. I imagine, I'm sure you got a bunch of people helping, but if someone's hearing and saying, hey, I'd love to get more involved with the campaign with signs and stuff, do you still got room for those volunteers?
Oh,
and things?
absolutely. Absolutely. Find me on Facebook. I have a personal account and also have a campaign account.
Just look for James Mason for judge.
Elect James Mason for magistrate judge.
Okay.
And then I believe my website's jamesmasonforjudge.com.
Very good.
It's going good. Early voting started last week, and it looks like the numbers are up pretty decently for the beginning. It's been really good.
Very good. And of course, like you said, reach out if you want to do that. And of course, if you have any questions about anything regarding campaign, or how do you feel about this, I'm sure reach out to them via Facebook or whatever, and I'm sure you'll be happy to get back to them to talk to them and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Because, that's we live in a community where we all chew the same dirt.
Exactly.
We all live together.
Yes.
We can all agree or disagree on something, but we all do have to live together and be human to each other.
Right.
And let's keep doing that and keep because we can work the rest of it out.
Absolutely.
I know we live in a world right now where it seems like it's an us versus them mentality wherever you go, but it really isn't.
Right.
It really isn't.
Right.
And
and the community really does. I mean, this is a great community, and we have good people, and we have a lot of people that are willing to help, and it's just exciting to see it come together.
Absolutely. I'll leave you the last word here. Any other information, anything you want to say, anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to make sure you got out today?
I think we covered a majority of it. I mean, we could spend hours visiting on.
Well, it's a lot of philosophy and things,
and it is. I mean, there's so many details that we could go over. Just happy to be here. Happy to continue serving the community.
And I would imagine too, the job is an evolving job. The law is the law,
right?
But how we interpret it, and the law changes.
The law changes daily.
Yeah.
There's so much involved. I mean, the Supreme. There's just so much involved. You have no clue, but the basics, the bases of everything are there. But you never know. I mean, you have to stay up on it, and which is good because through my career, that's what we do.
Absolutely.
I mean, we do updates on law every.
Just to give people perspective. I mean, when we talk about a law enforcement officer, they do a 12-hour shift.
It varies. Yes.
It varies, but we'll say on average. But like on a given month, if an average officer is doing we'll say the 40 hours a week type thing, how much of their 40-hour week is spent in training? On average, I bet it's a bigger number than most people think.
It's not. It's up to the officer. I mean, the state requires so much training every 2 years, and you have to get that.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot.
On
most
the field.
of it's paperwork.
Gotcha.
You get your field work done.
But I just know, like every meeting, like because they have their meetings every day, and they're constantly updating and changing. So I just figure, that's something that it's like almost like healthcare.
Right.
When you're not doing it, you're learning the changes about what they're doing to it.
And that's where the legal updates come in.
Yeah.
I mean, once the law changes as far as marijuana, everything else, that's where the district attorney's office comes in, and they say, hey, this is what we got. This is what needs to be. This is the new law.
Gotcha.
So a good officer will spend time learning and on their own.
Just not related to anything, just gee whiz curious. Now that recreational marijuana is here and stuff, have you guys seen an uptick on pulling over people with possession? Or
I believe there is.
Yeah.
I don't see it as much now that I'm stepped out of that.
This is true. You don't have to do as many.
Exactly. I mean,
not that you're not an officer and won't make arrests, but you're not patrolling a
you
beat.
Smell a lot more of it. You smell a lot more of it. Vehicles driving by. I mean, I've noticed walking. I'm like, well, you can smell that.
Well, I imagine as magistrate judge, you're going to be seeing quite a few of those cases before.
Yes, we will. We will. It's going to be, getting more of our guys trained in A-RIDE and DRE. That's going to be very important to this process because they're going to have to make those determinations, and it is a little bit different than alcohol.
Sure. Yeah, it's you can't use the same methods to detect.
Well,
like
you
would.
can, but you get some different results, and if you're not trained, you're not going to pick up
like
on them.
a blood test is kind of a be all end all for alcohol. It's like, hey, if you got it in your system and there, we know. But marijuana, it can be in your system for up to 30 days. So even if it's in your blood, that doesn't mean you're high right now or impaired.
And they're definitely the testing's gonna. I've heard that there is some out there that they're doing with swabs and things like that because the concentration. I don't know how they're going to determine that. I don't know.
Like at what level are you officially high versus?
You're going to have to basically go off the impairment and the odor, and you're going to have to be able to prove that case because.
So if you're actually extra dumb, you're probably going to.
Well, and with DWI we have the IR 8000. We run them through the fields.
It's pretty cut or dry.
We see the impairment, and they submit to a breath test. Or if they don't, if they don't submit to the test, they're aggravated. Marijuana is a whole new ballgame.
I imagine too, and I would imagine either what constitutes as possession and things. So like if it's in the back of the car, sealed up in a suitcase or something, versus it sitting in a cup container in the driver's seat. That's kind of like beer, like I imagine that's what they got to deal with, and then what constitutes
so many questions.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to watch it unfold. I mean, the benefit we do have is other states have been doing it, but I don't know. I'm
guessing
to see.
Courts like the magistrate court will be that testing ground on how how we go from here on prosecution and things, and see the numbers coming in and all that stuff. So.
It'll be Santa Fe and legislation.
Yeah, but it'll be based off the information that they gather in the courts here over the next couple of years, I'm guessing too. So, again, look for James Mason for Magistrate Judge on Facebook to learn more there. Reach out, and then of course, early voting's going on now. You can go and early vote if you want to wait till election day. They'll usually have like 11 different voting convenience centers for primary and all that stuff. So
right now is actually absentee voting.
Okay.
So that goes until the 21st. The 21st, the Roswell Mall Voting Center opens up also. So right now it's just at the county building.
At the clerk's office.
Yes,
there.
And that's the entrance over by Casa Maria.
Yeah.
The normal voting area there. So.
Yeah. You if you go through the main entrance, you can, but you're going to be doing a lot of hiking. And a lot of walking.
It's a walk, but if you
just want to sightsee the building,
right? If you have any special needs, handicap or anything like that, definitely go through the Casa Maria.
Of course, you can cut through and see the sheriff's office too if you want to come by for a visit.
Yeah, that would be a hike. Now. That would be a hike. Absolutely.
Yeah, it would. But you're going to see the building.
Right. So
good deal. Well, James, as always, appreciate the visit here, and good luck in the campaign. And and win, lose, or draw, we appreciate your service here. And this is even to. Any of our judges here, if you guys open forum, if you guys want to come on to talk anything or help or whatever, we'd love to have you. So.
Well, and the one thing I do want to say is please get out to vote. This primary is important. We've got the governor. We've got several candidates for governor. We need people to stand up and start voting.
This is the point that you get to make your say. I know we people are mad or happy at the world right now, whatever that is.
Right.
This is your one way to make your decision count.
It is.
I know it's fun to get on Facebook or various other social medias and yell and scream and get in fights with people. Sure, fun, and you get all amped up. But you know how many problems you solved at the end of the day?
Yes.
Not one single problem.
Nothing.
The one way that you can do it is by going to vote and voting your heart and voting the way that you truly believe it. And like you said, when it comes for governor here, you've got quite a few decisions to make.
Absolutely.
And this and obviously this magistrate judge race, this is your only chance to weigh in. So please do that.
Absolutely.
Please vote in this primary here, and because you have no excuse at that point. If you're the one on Facebook yelling and everything and you didn't vote, then you really have no credibility in my book. So.
Well, and it's just imperative. We've got to have it. No matter what you believe, we need to have it.
Well, people doing nothing is the easiest way to lose everything you have. It's It's not the people march, making loud noises, everything. It's people doing that and no one doing nothing to stop
Right.
it. Is how we get to where we get
Yes,
to.
sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Anything we missed you want to get out there?
No, not that I can think
Awesome.
of. It was a good time, and
We'll appreciate
we'll go from there.
We'll appreciate. I'm sure you got about 10 things you knock out after this, so we'll go let you do that.
Never ends. So
whether it's your day job or campaign, I'm sure you're busy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been a lot of hours, so we're constantly moving. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your
Yes,
service.
sir.
We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
Okay?
It's an honor. Thank you.